People are going to ask, so we got to do it. Talking about the big list of changes that are coming with the regional restart, meaning tomorrow. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. Mythic plus a lot of other changes, some things going on with the raid too, but not going to be focused on that. We're going to get started with what I think is probably the funniest one. With regional restarts, Manifestation of Pride, the prideful effects, now sees through stealth and invisibility effects. And that is, you could thank the MDI for that one. That's right out of the MDI if you watch how they handled it. A bit ridiculous, honestly. Yeah, I don't think Blizzard would have ever wanted that to happen. So they were basically skipping every single pride. They had the option to skip every single pride. So I don't know exactly if, what that does with Shadow Meld, but I'd imagine this was inspired by that. So anyway, here's some big ones. Some quite, things get really heated here. Plaguefall, Margrave Stradamus. So last boss, famous, very difficult encounter. Plaguebound Devoted, that's the mobs that spawn. Health and damage reduced by 40%. Now that's a really good one because for me, I find the difficulty of that boss as a tank is actually the ads. They're constantly not dying quick enough because range are panicking, running around in circles, and they really hit hard. So both health and damage should mean that is no longer going to be a mechanic for me. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Reduce the cast frequency of Infectious Rain during her final phase. So what is the actual frequency reduction? This could be a really big deal. Does it literally only happen once? Regardless, the final phase, a lot of people are using big CDs or Lust or something. It doesn't last very long, but this fight on Tyrannical is really brutal. I don't think this is the right approach, though. Unfortunately, I'm going to say that a few times here. I don't think these are the right approaches. We'll talk about why. Slightly adjusted the timing of Plague Crash so there's a little more time between tentacle slaps. Okay, so we basically nerfed parts of the fight that were not actually difficult for most players. Okay, and I just don't get it. It makes me concerned because this boss is just so much harder than probably every other boss in the game in certain ways. And I think the reason why that is because of this Infectious Rain mechanic. It's just so brutal, and having to then like move immediately after. Like a lot of times it goes out right as the phase happens, and then you're sat there healing and moving and dealing with all this other stuff. So I definitely would have liked to have just seen that ability nerfed. Maybe even make it go longer, like last longer, but nerfed in damage. It's just really like if you don't actually have somebody who could dispel, you could lose a key because of this one mechanic. It's kind of crazy. But game's supposed to be difficult. I just think that's a little bit too much compared to some of the other bosses that are out there. Like, if you compare that to other dispellable debuffs, I don't think you would see something that has like multiple stacks and can only be dispelled in a certain way. And, like it should just be a magic dispel, maybe. I think it would make it a lot easier. Anyway, Sanguine Depths. This was actually something that multiple people brought up over the months, and I myself had seen happen to me. You just weren't getting count from these chamber sentinels. That's got to be those flying mobs. I don't know exactly what that means. Let's see if there's a clarification. Yeah. Oh, no, it's these guys. That's interesting. Huh. That is not what I expected, actually. So I don't know if that's relevant to what I was talking about, but obviously, if that's not happening, then that's a big bug. So this is a first boss, and this is actually a really difficult fight on really high keys. Severing Smashes damage has been reduced by 20% on all difficulties. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that would then absorbing it as well would be a 20% reduction. So just baseline across the board, that mechanic has been nerfed, and that is fine by me, because even if you watch some of the keys this week, Fortified, we actually wiped on this boss. It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, so anyway. Tarvold, a fleeting manifestation. Health reduced by 20%. Thank you. That is a good change. I would prefer have to see maybe the damage it does or something reduced. I don't know exactly what I would like to see instead, but it's a very good start because these ads are just a freaking pain. They drop a thing on the ground. They do a ton of damage. They complicate the fight considerably. Very satisfied to see that. Anyway, any change at all to that fight is going to be good for me. Okay, so these are the ads at the end. Are no longer affected by affixes that trigger on death, e.g. Sanguine. And I think what that means is bolstering, because I saw a pretty funny little thing there where somebody accidentally bolstered the next one and they just couldn't. It was impossible. So if you didn't realize, like, they don't actually die when their health reaches 0. there's like a little bit of a 2 or 3 second delay that kind of they get like absorbed into the next one, and then that one could get bolstered if you pulled it before that happens. So that's very bad. I assume that's going to count. Bolstering is going to happen. Anyway, oppression now increases damage taken by 1%, was 2%. So that's going to make everything about that whole final one a lot easier, depending on which one you pull first. Obviously, you might see this more, so I always had that one last. But okay, Necrotic Wake. And one thing I will note is, I mean, these mobs really are like the centerpiece of the dungeon, honestly. So I'm glad they didn't just completely nerf them into obscurity. And frankly, I didn't really feel like they needed to be nerfed. Like, this is a very generous. I didn't think it was needed, but that's okay, sure. Okay, so here we go. Another MDI. If Bloody Javelin and Discharge Anima hit more than 8 enemies, the total damage is distributed evenly across all targets. Okay, so let's operative thing here, 8. Okay, so very, very, very unlikely any real groups are going to be doing this. This is like a high-end thing only, but if you did not see, I would not be surprised. Anyway, if you did not see, basically people are aggroing the entire floor of the necropolis, snapping it downstairs, and then using the spear into the orb and deleting it, okay? That'd be like 20-some% count in very, very, very short period of time. So again, MDI, thank you. Kyrian armaments, all these things. Now persist through depth. What are you talking about? That's the biggest change. The biggest change. So that is really cool. A lot of times, I just cannot stand the fact that some idiot picks this up and then just doesn't interrupt the Frostbolt volley and is going to die. I can't stand that. So that's great. Brittle Bone Crossbowman. Now, I don't know. I think this is part of the encounter. And that's probably the trash that's with the Necromancer, I suppose. Anyway, damage reduced. Fix an issue with crossbow was ignoring armor. Okay. Mage's Frostbolt volley reduced by 20%, and cast time increased to 3.5 seconds. So now you're missing these casts, you're really clueless, but at least 20% reduction. That's going to mean like, you can get a whole nother cast without it being dangerous because it stacks up. Anyway, Frostbolt damage reduced as well. Big reduction there, 36%. Corpse Harvester and Corpse Collector's health reduced by 29%. I mean, these are crazy nerfs. Some of these nerfs are insane. Stitch Vanguard's health reduced by 14%. This is a boss, by the way. Health reduced by 20%. I mean, what are you talking about? This is the second boss, isn't it? Or is it the last boss? I actually don't know the name. This guy sucks. Well, Larold, you're probably going to like this nerf. Anyways, what else? Skeletal Monstrosities. Health reduced by 20%. Melee damage reduced by 25%. These are nuts nerfs. I'll tell you what. Absolutely insane nerfs to this dungeon. Oh, no. Nazruda is, of course, the trash mob. That is, of course, that mob that... Yes, that's great. I quite like that, actually. But these are just insane. I've never seen them nerf the health of trash like this. This is really nuts. Kyrian Stitchwork, health reduced by 25%. Melee damage reduced by 17%. So basically the entire route that we would do has all been nerfed in some significant way. And I mean, I'm not sure you could skip half this stuff. So pretty crazy. Carrion Worm's Blood Gurge applications required to trigger increased to 5. Are we playing the same game? Is this WoW that we're playing here? What are they doing? Okay, so now that's never going to happen now, right? I mean, come on. The amount of time, it's quite funny though. Raise your hand if you don't know what this is. Seriously, just, admit to yourself. It's fine. No big deal. Just raise your hand if you don't know what this is. The amount of people who just sit there and that little thing just like, it just kind of, it's like 3 times and then we die. And it's like, they were completely clueless. Like, I swear to God, they probably like, what was that? What the hell was that? Like, they actually aren't aware that the mob meleeing you is going to be a wipe. Because it usually dies so fast if you have certain combinations of things happening. Well, there you go. So, all right, 5 now. It's ridiculous. Amarth. Now, imagine if they nerfed this dude's health. You literally just one-shot him with the spear. Anyway, Amarth's the second boss. Reduce the range skeletons are summoning during Land of the Dead. I cannot wait to see that. That is going to be very interesting because quite difficult, sometimes hard to get them in. Unholy Frenzy attack speed bonus reduced by 20%. And then here is all the mobs also reduced by the similar percentages at least. This is like bugged, I guess. It says Frostbolt volley twice. It's probably supposed to just mirror what happened up here, which is 20% for volley, 36 for Frostbolt. So that's that. No health change to the boss, though. I guess that's, yeah, I got myself confused there. Embalming Ichor, duration reduced to 1 minute. What? It's a quest item. That's great. We could use that. I think that's the stuff on the ground. Surgeon Stitch Flash, 1 minute. Yeah, I mean 6 minutes. What are you talking about? That's the stuff on the ground, I have to imagine. So 1 minute, now it's going to go away. I guess that's generous. If you're fighting this boss for longer than a minute, significantly longer than a minute, you've probably done something wrong. Especially now that these items, like, yeah, look at this. Especially now that these items persist through death, this boss has just gotten nerfed. Honestly, the amount of times we get to Stitch Flesh with no items is high. Like, people die with them all the time. And that's actually it. Okay. Some other changes that you might want to be checking out. But yeah, so what do I think? I'm surprised that these are not changes that I expected. Let's put it this way. Like, first of all, Stradama, I think they, like, I don't know, like, why is this fight so much harder than everything else in the game, basically? I don't know. I still don't get it. It's always going to be probably one of the hardest fights ever. It's just so difficult to actually deal with that if you have no way of dispelling it. And you have to play perfectly, but I don't know. We'll see what these ads, like how these things happen. And then, it's like funny, right? So it's like, okay, well, we think Plaguefall last boss is fine. And then you have this boss, which is like, I mean, it's like probably one of like the most skill-based bosses in the game, right? Like dealing with the smash well is like imperative. If you do it really, really, really well, and there's even these cheese strats, it's a joke. Like it's a simple mechanic, but it's like these pugs get slaughtered by it, right? So it's like the opposite here. It's like this boss is like, no. This boss is too easy, bro. We're not nerfing it. And this one's like, it's too hard. We got to nerf it. And then they're like, this dungeon is just, the trash is too healthy. Like, what? So I don't know. I can't even imagine. Definitely looking forward to doing Necrotic Wake, seeing all these changes, some substantial changes. So let me know, what else should they change? I am very surprised that they did not change any of the timers.